Hi folks, Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about I think it's a pretend perception, but a perception they push nonetheless, where radical globalist, pro-globalist leftists go through this pretense that really their views are never heard, that the only views out there in the media landscape and the commentariat landscape, the only views are far-right Nazi views, the views of good people, good, decent people, that climate change is going to kill us all by tomorrow. Those views, they're not heard anywhere. You just can't get them out there. No one allows those. They're being viciously suppressed by evil fascist Nazis. So now, I'm at a barbecue lunch here where there's a high-ranking member of, like the deputy dean or something of a university, a senior judge, and a couple of heavyweight lawyers that have got their own legal practice, doing very well, by the way, mostly doing well out of government contracts, but nonetheless doing well. They're living in luxurious waterfront properties and all that sort of stuff, and a wealthy industrialist. In fact, I'm the only poor one there, or I'm not in their league at least. So anyway, it comes up, the conversation about Trump and this mugshot and so on. Now, the position, and bear in mind, there's a judge and two heavyweight lawyers, that the position they're taking is Trump did it. Whatever he's been accused of, this is before it's been heard in a court, by the way, whatever he's been accused of, he did do it. He did do it. Why did he do it? Well, the facts don't really matter. He's a damn fucking fascist, far right Nazi, So ideologically, regardless of facts, regardless whether he did or didn't do any of that stuff, ideologically, he's opposed to globalization or questions it. Either one is a crime, and therefore he's kind of got to go down for that. Now, so what you do is you just sift through, everything he's done and whatever you can find that you can use against him, or anyone who's against or questions globalization, then that's okay to do that. They're far right, they're Nazis, and this means that you're allowed to do it because you're a good person. You do support the globalization project, which makes you automatically a virtuous person. Anyone that questions who doesn't support it is non-virtuous. If you're non-virtuous, then you're bad. If you're bad, you're a Nazi. So that's kind of how the logic. Now, again, I want to bring in mind here that the wealthy industrialists, but the judge, the two lawyers, and somebody who's supposed to be in charge of educating people and encouraging public debate and discussion of contentious ideas, the university guy. These are all people that should be fully supporting the idea of you can't just drag someone into court because you don't like them. You have to use evidence and facts. You can't just say they're guilty because you don't, and so on. Now I remember I don't want to be on the non-invite list of these people, and I am on currently the invite list, so I have to keep my views under wraps. But it came down to this idea of this business of the mugshot and so on. Now, every mainstream news outlet across the Western world has been fully supporting this arresting of Trump and the charges and the allegations and the super sloppy sort of and obviously manifestly politicized witch hunt against him. And so they're fully inspired. I have not seen a major news outlet or even one that ranks in the the top 3 or 4 or the top 5 even that's been in favor of Trump. There's been a few that have been moving towards the neutral, saying, well, as long as his due process is recognised and those sort of things are important. But they haven't been supporting Trump. They've generally been, well, he must have done something bad. Otherwise, they've been sort of going down that path. But I haven't seen any news outlet anywhere that's been in support of Trump. Now, sure, there's been some online stuff, through the online sort of news commentariat, but in terms of the major media sites, in fact, all the media sites, they're either super on board with Trump being arbitrarily arrested, arbitrarily accused of anything, and the outrageous trashing of due process and the rule of law, that sort of stuff is, who cares? You're going after a bad guy, so why should we worry about those sort of things? Now, remember, this is coming from lawyers and a judge. That's just how insane we are in the world at the moment. Nor is this judge, I wouldn't rate him as a radical activist. So I was a little bit taken aback when he was, he said, oh, well, I think they should have just been a little bit more particular and they shouldn't have been quite so sloppy. But in terms of the overall objective and what they're trying to do, he's in support of that. He just thinks they should have done it a little bit more professionally, the chasing of Trump. So, but anyway, I've got to keep my views to myself. So it came up, all these right-wing media outlets, these right-wing media, they're cheering Trump on. The right wing, the far right, the Nazis, the fascists, the neo-Nazis, the scum. And so they're talking about as if every media outlet was fully in support, as in aggressively in support of Trump, and there wasn't a single voice against. So I let this go on for a little bit, and they're all nodding with each other, and it's a real echo chamber. And now the reality or the hard facts are that there is not a single media outlet in support of Trump. It's certainly not any of the top ones. There are a few that you'd say maybe attending to the neutral side of it, like GB News or some commentators in GB News in Britain. But in terms of fully supporting Trump and his rights, I'm not aware of any, certainly none that I know of. So, but according to these people, there is every media outlet is screaming support for Trump. Now, I was interested in this because I know that's not true. You wouldn't know. Looking at CNN where they're saying right-wing media, far-right media outlets, but who are these far-right media outlets? I'm not aware of any. I'm not aware of a single one. Excuse me. So I'm talking to these. So I asked, oh wow, I'd really like to see one of these, or read or watch one of these far right media outlets that's supporting they're so supporting Trump. Those evil fascist Nazis. Can you tell me one? And then there's this silence around the table, and they look at each other. And somebody going to say that we're going to this Channel X? Oh well, I've heard. Then it comes back. The university guy was the one that came first. So I've heard there's all these right wing outlets that are supporting Trump. So well maybe there is. I'm just not. I really like to see it for myself. If you know of one, just one. I need one. Can you name one media outlet that is supporting Trump? I saw a couple of news pieces from this and that channel, and they're really super anti-Trump. So that this can't be them. So it must be somewhere else. I'd be interested in knowing. And they couldn't. None of them could think of one. Yet they're all raving about how all the news establishment is right wing. It's all Nazis. They're all supporting Trump. But in fact, there wasn't. And they couldn't name a single one. They couldn't point to a single article. They couldn't point to a single piece. Then there was after this silence, then there was a few waves of, it's online, the online stuff. Well, but they're not major news outlets. Sure, online commentators, fine. So then they got to the next stage where any commentary that was in favor of Trump should not be allowed. Anything, even if it was a sober analysis of whether or not his due process legal rights were being observed, and nothing is allowed there to be either supporting Trump or to call into question the intent, methodology, or the procedural nature of the obvious witch hunt against him. So I tried to sort of stir it up the pot a little bit by saying, well, I think some of those online people think that maybe it's political that they're going after him, and it's his due legal process rights and not being observed fully. And well, that's far right. There you go. That's it. That's what the Nazis always say. Nazis say that. What do you mean? Talking about due process, due legal process and the rule of law, that's Nazis, fascist, Hitler. So the conversation really went along those lines. Now, again, the university guy is probably the best one to kick it all off again. So he came. It's the same as climate change. Same as climate change. All these right-wing Nazi, they're everywhere, trashing climate change. Now Hitler is personal. Da, da, da. And so again, now, so okay, let's explore that. And I've got to be careful because I don't want to clam up or think, oh well, you're Hitler, and that sort of stuff. So you got to be sort of pretty careful here with these people because they're certainly not rational. Now here's this guy. I mean, I don't know how much he gets paid at the university, but it's $500,000 plus. And the guy's a fucking moron, but nonetheless, as an ideological fanatic type moron. So, according to him and the others there, that there is not a single news outlet, institution, organisation or group that supports the climate change, that the world's going to end tomorrow from climate change. There's not they're all Nazis, all fascists, they're all denying it. There's not a single voice raised in support of climate change. Now, that's got to be the most outrageous, absurd untruth that you can possibly imagine. The entire political establishment, the universities, the educational establishment, the think tanks, the media stations, there is not a single major media outlet or outlet of any description, or commentary, NGOs, of any description that is actually against the climate change. So again, I sort of said, well, if that's the case, can you, if there's no media outlet that's supporting it, tell me about the media outlets that are against it. Again, I'd like to look. And again, there was this deafening silence. But the main thing I wanted to illustrate in this essay is that these people, they have this strange, and it's a practice. They seem to all do it, whether you're looking at CNN or that they pretend that they're surrounded by far-right, neo-fascist Nazi, everybody's Hitler, everyone's against them, but they're fighting back against Hitler. And they're so courageous and virtuous by doing it, and they're really putting themselves out there, and they're the resistance, running scared in the shadows to fight back against these omnipresent Nazis. Whereas every media outlet screams from the rooftops about how wonderful the climate change agenda is. You can look at some of the much smaller media outlets that command 2% of the audience. I mean, they may question it and make legitimate questions. But even the legitimate question, the science is settled. It's done. If you disagree with it, then you're fucking Hitler. And so they have this pretense, this absurd pretense. Now, again, we're talking to judges and lawyers here. We're not talking about people with IQ of -5 million. We're talking about people who, and I don't think they're that bright, some of them, but we're talking about people who, at the very least, they're the highest income earners. They have the most prestigious roles. They're lionized in sections of the media and so on. And yet these are the people that say we're all surrounded by Nazis. Now, it came down to, I wanted a definition of what they say Nazi is. And they seem to have, are you indoctrinated? So if you're indoctrinated into the globalist view, then you're a good person. But if you're unindoctrinated, and unindoctrinated means you ask questions or you have doubts or you like proof or this or that. If you're unindoctrinated, then you're Hitler. So there's indoctrinated and unindoctrinated, and this seems to be the thing. So they have this sort of fantasy that they're surrounded by unindoctrinated people who maybe don't agree with them or question it. And then these people must all be Hitler, and it's quite insane. But they also, the misrepresentation, this idea that everyone is supporting Trump, all the media outlets, all the NGOs, all the that's manifestly untrue. They're all cheering it on. All the major media that are all globalist controlled, by the way, but they're all cheering it on. Certainly in the major media outlets here in Australia, they're gloating over Trump being brought down, and if he's brought down by false allegations or fabricated evidence, they don't care. Bring him down. That's the only issue here, because he's a Nazi too, and so on it goes. So these people pretend that they're surrounded by Nazis, and they create this artificial, we're oppressed by Nazis and they're everywhere. They create this artificial fantasy world that, of course, doesn't exist. There are no Nazis. They're not surrounded by Nazis. They're surrounded by people that not only share their views and promote them and extol them, or try and extol them to the rest of us, but they're not the resistance. They're the majority. Certainly of elite opinion, they're the majority, and they're pushing that on the rest of us while pretending to be the oppressed minority. What I think they really mean is that they're telling so many lies and absurdities and pushing so many lies and absurdities that they know the majority of people really don't agree with them. So they say, well, if you don't agree with us, you're all Nazis. And I think it goes something along those lines. But I was amazed at the delusional, well, actually not amazed, concerned would be a better one, concerned about these people are the elites. These are the folks that are really deciding what happens to the rest of us, and they're living in this insane delusion and inventing this paranoia that they're surrounded by enemies. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.